Hi and hello, Watch fans, and welcome to another Audicle analysis show where David, Alon, and I sit down and talk about one of our recent Audicles. Today, we are going to be discussing the Audicle that went live a couple of weeks ago, entitled Hublot may finally be getting the respect it deserves. Now, as you might have gathered from our previous episodes and from the article that David wrote for us, we're all kind of fans of Hublot, so we may be lacking some of the normal friction we have in these analysis episodes, but I'm sure we can put our critical hats on and be analysts for the day for the sake of entertaining our dear listeners. Hi, chaps. Welcome to the studio. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, buddies. Hope you're all doing well. Excited to record this episode. And I want to start by saying, damn the both of you.
It's nice to hear from you too, Alon. How's it going on your end?
You know what? This show is not good for me. I am spending too much money on watches because of the two of you. I freaking bought a Hublot watch.
My fault. Soz. Well, all right. Okay. You did buy a Hublot, yeah, and so did I. But people on the other end of this podcast need to understand we're not like rolling in dollar bills over here. What happened was I was perusing Hublot on Chrono24 after one of our recent episodes, lusting over their like ceramic Big Bangs or Magic Gold, GMTs, blah, blah, blah. And I obviously put into the sort by filter price lowest to highest. And at the lowest end of Hublot's offering, there were these crazy little 36mm bead blasted service watches for about 700 euros to about 1200 euros. And what they were, I didn't know about them at the time, so I did a little bit of research, did a bit of digging. Between around 1990 and 1993, Hublot would send out these tiny little quartz-regulated service watches to any Hublot owner that sent their watch in for service, like a courtesy car. And on the back, they're stamped with not for sale. And the idea was you had to send back the 36mm trinket to receive your real Hublot once it had been serviced. Somehow, at some point, probably quite recently, a bunch of these have ended up in the hands of resellers. And I've never seen it before, so they may only have just recently become available. But I did some other searches elsewhere on Katawiki and on eBay, and I managed to find a pair of them in Spain for 450 euros each. So I bought one there, told Alon about it, said, I've bought a Hublot, ha ha ha. You know, teasing the lads as I was, and then sent them the picture, and we were all cracking up about how ridiculous a Hublot it was to buy. And Alon, in typical spirit of camaraderie, was like, right, I'm buying one too. So he bought the other one, and now we're both Hublot owners. It's crap though, isn't it, Alon? It's a crap Hublot.
It is indeed. It's so funny. I'm actually looking now on eBay. There are a few around the 500. There's somebody selling them for 1950. It's a running gag we have on the show. And the irony of it was, it's a funny anecdote, but you know what? Before we do, we're very rude. David, we didn't ask how you're doing, buddy.
No, that's very kind. I'm doing very well. Thank you. For listeners of the show, we're all great friends in the background, and we appreciate the enthusiasm that Alon came with on, but I'm good. Everything's great here in France. And I guess this is a good segue. I don't want to maybe move us away from the quartz Hublots, but when you said crap Hublot, Rob, I think to a lot of people that might be a bit redundant because all Hublots are crap, aren't they?
Oh, not according to the Real-Time Show. We bloody love them.
That's right. And so I think that was a good segue into what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show.
Yeah, so the question is, Hublot finally getting the respect they deserve? And I think the answer is, well, from us at least, the answer is yes, but from some corners of the industry, it's still a bit frosty. Let's try and put ourselves in the shoes of people that aren't so enamored of Hublot. Alon.
Yes.
Could you please, if you can muster the energy, be critical of Hublot? Tell me something you don't like about the brand. What could they do better?
I love elegance. I love proportions. And I guess the biggest criticism Hublot might get, it's too pompous, too big, too much in your face, out there. So I could relate to that. I do love colors. I love all the sapphire stuff they do, the innovation they do. But you know what? For the sake of throwing a curveball as a retailer, I'm actually pissed off at Hublot that they chose a semi-verticalized approach of retail where almost in every country they have only one chain representing them. with a mono-brand boutique plus a bit of retail and e-com. So they block out everybody else. So maybe I'll put that out there. What about you, chaps?
So if we're just going to go off the bat with what we know the criticisms are, for me, and there's a couple we can probably touch on, but I think for me, what is a little bit, or what does have some truth to it is this idea that they're very high priced occasionally for what you get. So I went down the Hublot rabbit hole also, and there's a couple of watches I could see myself wearing and owning, but one did look really cool, and that was the Classic Fusion Aero Fusion, I believe. So it has a moon phase, it's got a triple calendar, it's in that sort of classic Fusion case, and you turn it over, and it's just a very plain looking, it looks like a 2892 with some kind of module on top of it, and that's fine. I mean, I understand it, but I just wish that if they were going to go that route, even despite the fact that, they share company space with a company like Zenith, I wish they had done more to it. Decorations, color, something. It just seems very kind of off-putting to ask the prices they ask for on those watches, have everything work out, and then turn it over. And with the display case back, not really have put any effort into those movements.
Yeah, that is a shame, because I think that when you get a decent Unico movement, that can be a real selling point. But the gulf in class between those and the bog standard, slightly tarted up ones is massive, and that would put me off, because I would want to have Hublot made movement for sure. Why do we think as a team that people are so put off by Hublot? What is it? Alon, you mentioned something when we were off air that I thought was interesting about the nature of their collaborations. Do you want to elaborate on that for us?
I guess they do so much, and it's so scattered and diffused, and big quantity of collabs, models. It's almost incoherent, maybe, and it's ironic, maybe, to say, because there's a clear Hublot signature in design. There's a hardcore DNA, I guess, there. And when Jean-Claude Biver bought it, he called it he went for the Big Bang term, where he said it's the merge of many different things, the fusion, the art of fusion, which still is their, I guess, USP, their unique selling point. So they have a clear-cut case shape, and I guess that's their DNA, the grille of a car, let's say, for the sake of it. The only odd one out is their tonneau rectangular shaped watch, and maybe the hardcore Ferrari models and stuff. But they all look alike, right? So from a distance, you could spot a Hublot watch. Now, play haters will call it a Royal Oak ripoff. I don't think it's fair, because why would you? Because they're big like an offshore, or because they have drill holes in the bezel, so I think that's not really fair.
I think you hit upon something there, something really interesting that perhaps we didn't twig on early enough in our discussions about Hublot, and I think it might be key to why Hublot might be getting the respect it deserves from some corners of the industry. And you said that's their USP, their unique selling point. The fusion of, say, rubber and gold together was what really put them on the map in the 80s, right? But that was the 80s. Now, Hublot made a statement back then that was its USP and created some market separation and ultimately led to success in the future of that brand. But nowadays, what Hublot did and what Hublot continues to do is not particularly remarkable in that sense. The fusion of materials, the fusion of stuff with other stuff is still Hublot's forte, absolutely, and still in many ways a USP, but an ever niche USP than the very clear one that it was at the time. What you had was an integrated rubber strap. Okay, fine. You see that these days, you don't bat an eyelid at all. It's not remarkable. Is it perhaps possible then that the reason why Hublot is getting the respect it deserves, because it's sort of finally, or the industry is caught up with it? Maybe the industry is assimilated with Hublot. David, what do you think about that?
I think that's really interesting. And one of you, maybe you, Alon, can correct me or confirm this, because you've been in the industry for a long time. But I looked up the diameter of the original watch, and I believe, if I understand the company structure, it was originally called MDM, and they made a watch called the Hublot, and it was 36 millimeters, I think, and it was quartz. So this wasn't like a large thing by any means. So if I had to trace it back to when I think the hate started, and I was not into the hobby at the time, but call it mid or early 2000s when Jean-Claude Biver introduced the Big Bang. And maybe that's when, at the time it was fully on trend, but maybe it was just a little bit to the right of that trend even. So the trend was big and they were going huge. And so it seems like maybe because Hublot did not change with the times after, that pendulum swung back towards smaller watches. Maybe that's where it started. But fast forward to today, and I'm sort of now ending up on the answer to your question, Rob. It seems to me like there's this convergence of factors which is coming into play, which is one, that flexing is a totally accepted thing. I mean, the Rainbow Daytona is not a big deal, but it's still a big deal if that makes any sense. On top of that, I think that more people being educated about watches leaves them more likely to explore other things. And then finally, let's give credit to Hublot. I think they've just really put in the work. I believe that they are the premier material scientists in the watch industry. I think they've done a great job really, really leaning into what makes a Hublot. And I think that the dividends are finally being paid from that.
Well put and well said, David. Just a quick question for you as a Frenchie. For those that didn't hear the Audicle or haven't heard us talk about Hublot, what does it mean?
Hublot means porthole. So it's got the same nautical themes as the other famous watches that were listed in the article: Audemars Piguet Royal Oak and Patek Philippe Nautilus. And Hublot just means porthole.
So for the record, it's not Hublot, but it's Hublot. Because there are actually a lot of TikTok movies about that to explain how to pronounce even the name. Since we're doing this game, David, I love the French accent. Big discussion in the industry, even guys working for Jaeger-LeCoultre, JLC. Is it Jaeger or Jaeger?
Oh no, yeah, we're gonna go off topic with this, but I can confirm that it's Jaeger-LeCoultre. There's no Jaeger there.
All right, because we're all about educating and sharing our passion. Okay, so David, going back to the article, you took a bold statement. Hublot may finally be getting the respect it deserves. So you claim that they didn't get respect? And why is it that you think they're finally getting it?
I'm going to take the question as asking what makes me think now they're finally getting that respect. And it's coming from, so there's differing ways of looking at this. I would say from the bottom up, we'll say, so we'll call it from the readership level going upwards, you still see a fair amount of that. Like if you choose any article on a recent Hublot release and you look at the comments, for sure, a fair portion of those are going to be, this is overpriced, this is garbage, what's Hublot doing, etc. What makes me think the tide may finally be turning is that if you actually look at the articles themselves, not the comments, they're highly complimentary. I know that the point of being a blogger is you have to editorialize to a point, but you also have to be factual. But if you look at the combination of those two, it's just highly complimentary. I mean, if you look at the quote I pulled in the article from Zach Kazan over at Worn & Wound, he was extremely enthusiastic about what was going on. I think you could probably pick any other well-known publication and find the same thing. And even if people are saying that it's not for them, which is a totally fair opinion, I think what they were saying was, okay, it's not for me, but this is really well done, and you have to respect the amount of work that's going into this. And if you look at how any trend gets going, let me take a step back. There's a famous kind of anecdote or story. How do you get the ball rolling on something? So imagine, you're in a park and one person gets up and starts dancing. Just imagine whatever music is on in your head. They start dancing. Okay, fine. A second person is going to start dancing. That's when you start to see the crowd join in. So one person is not going to do anything. Two people may not do anything. By the time you get to the third, you're picking up speed and you're moving along. And I think that's what's going to happen here eventually, is that if Hublot keeps doing what they're doing, if the positive press keeps coming in as it's coming in, I think you will see that momentum build and we'll see what happens. And, maybe this is a good time to bring in the anecdote that you shared with regards to a watch that was in your boutique.
Yeah, so funny story. I started off this episode very jokingly that damn you and damn you guys and damn the show, and I don't want to do it anymore because I'm spending too much money. So after we bought that service watch as a joke, I said to myself, hey, I'm an owner of a jeweler, and we're growing very rapidly as a CPO dealer, certified pre-owned dealer. Let me check if we actually have a Hublot in stock, an Hublot. So I went and looked in all the play showcases, and I'm like, hey, you actually have a classic Fusion here, which I totally missed because I didn't give Hublot the fair chance and attention. And actually, because of your passion, you re-sparked my passion for Hublot. And I said, hey, let me give it some TLC. So I put it on. I'm like, yeah, it's actually a cool watch. Well made, proportion, design-wise, it's unique. And I put it on my Instagram Reels and I tagged you guys as a joke, part of our running gag, to tease each other. And then I put it up on my Instagram Reels and my TikTok simultaneously, which I do copy-paste. And hold and below, that watch was sold within 24 hours. I got 3 buddies of mine saying dibs, they wanted it. One of my buddies said, hey, I'm coming in to see it, who lives nearby. And he bought it. And the other 2 guys were bummed out where Hublot wasn't on their radar. And then 24 hours later, I looked at my stats and that TikTok movie actually scored above average in views. So I said to myself, hey, David is right. It's getting more respect. So it was actually a funny anecdote.
Do you feel, though, that it's been relatively well respected? I mean, I'm building on David's point here more than yours, Alon, because that is a funny anecdote and that's bizarre, but great to hear that your community reacted so positively to it as well. But don't you feel, David, that the positivity has always been there or thereabouts on the professional side of the industry? The journalists have always kind of defended Hublot a little bit, or at least in my mind. Maybe they're doing it more now, but I always remember people saying, yeah, Hublot, it kind of shoots itself in the foot with the marketing sometimes. It's a bit in your face. It's a bit crass. It's got a bad rep because it's on the wrist of footballers and rappers and so on and so forth. But the watch community themselves always kind of made a few excuses for it. Yeah, but, they really do good work behind closed doors and it isn't as flippant or as arrogant as it appears. Yeah, okay, they're 44 millimeters plus generally, but its soul is pure. Do you think that there's any change now, any visible change in the comment sections? Because they're the things, aren't they? Because the comment section, I know depending on the media outlet, the comment sections can either be respectful and friendly and, engaged, or they can just be absolute mud fights. So do you think there's a shift in the community, a more positive outlook now, or do you think it really is more on the journalist side?
Man, that's a great question. I hesitate to answer this because the analytical part of me wants to go and get a few articles and run a sample and see what's going on. It seems to me, if I'm just going super qualitatively, as in I'm just kind of going off what I think I've seen, it seems to me like years ago, the watch press was more just politely accepting of it. Okay, we have to cover this. We're not going to say anything bad, but we're not going to gush over this either. I think that has changed to now, no, this is really, really great stuff. If you look at the comments section, I would say that the negativity is still there, but it seems like the comments that are positive and they really get it in the sense that, again, maybe it's not for them, but they accept hey, they're doing colored ceramic. That's really difficult. It looks really cool. And you're only going to get that from Hublot. So let's at least pay attention to it because it's fun. And maybe this is a good place to jump into something else that I alluded to in the Audicle, which is that at the end of the day, someone's buying these watches because, Alon, you referenced their retail strategy. Where I used to live in Houston, they had one store in the Galleria, which is a very upscale shopping area. I'm assuming all their other stores are the same way. And granted, Hublot's part of a big group. There is cash there if they need it, but that's not an indefinite source of cash. So they must be doing well. And the indications I find are that they are doing well. So I feel like, on one hand, we have this small community that's saying, this is okay, I can tolerate this now. But then there's this huge crowd of people who have already bought into this. And one last thing before I turn it back over to y'all is that, fine, they're on the wrists of footballers, but so is the offshore, so is the Nautilus, so is a ton of other things. And so I'm not sure that's really, we can't knock that for being the case. And we can't knock the people who buy these watches just because they're on, Kylian Mbappe's wrist or something like that.
It's weird you say that because you're absolutely right, of course. For some reason, though, I mean, you don't disagree with me, do you? That Hublot's the one that gets the bad reputation. Nobody talks about Patek. I mean, didn't LeBron turn up to a game the other night wearing the Patek Philippe Nautilus Tiffany Special Edition? I mean, nobody gives Patek shade for LeBron wearing one of the watches, but when LeBron wore a AP, I think he's a partner with AP, isn't he? Everybody was okay with it. So why Hublot?
It's a strange thing. Yeah, the only thing I can come up with is this idea of a zombie opinion. So sort of someone who maybe has some respect in the community says it, and then someone else maybe wants to just kind of go along with it and says, oh yeah, that's terrible as well. And someone else does it. So that the whole dancing example goes negative as well, if enough people say it. Because I think that if you were to make a list of everything that makes a good watch company, keeping in mind that no brand is perfect, I think Hublot checks most of those boxes. Maybe it's just because its brand image isn't one of, as I mentioned again in the article, like a wood paneled study or, an important business meeting. Hublot's, that's the fun brand. But like, why are we going to hate on that? Because everyone likes to have fun. And if we accept flexing in watch culture, then we have to sort of accept that Hublot's perfectly positioned to capitalize on that. So I don't know, Alon, it sounds like you have some thoughts as well on this.
When I was a younger man and single and using dating apps such as Tinder, the thing that would always make me laugh the most, like when you swipe through a girl's profile, is when she says in the comments, like interests, I like having fun. Of course you fucking like having fun. Nobody doesn't like having fun. The question is, how you have fun. Do you have fun by like hanging out with your friends and going to restaurants and 10-pin bowling or whatever, hang gliding, I don't know. Or do you have fun by murdering chickens in the dead of night? No.
Wait, Rob. We have a scoop here. You on Tinder? Did you have a wife beater shirt on with a Hublot on the pictures?
Well, of course,
But wait, doesn't mean having fun just the F word you just used. That's what it means on Tinder, doesn't it? I've never been on it, but
interest section is not like, it's not a code word for anything. Like, that would be like, oh, I'm only here for fun or something like that. It's like your hobby is having fun. It's like, yeah, of course, everybody's hobby is having fun. Nobody doesn't like to not have fun. Like, life is to have fun. You see what I'm saying?
In the US, it meant, hey, you want to hang out? That's code word. Do you want to have fun? That literally means what you just said. So I'm confused. But anyways, we're deviating, guys. Rob, I had a totally different question for you. As a journalist and being part of the actually insiders crew of journalists and watch journalists, was there hating going on from the in crowd, the hardcore of respected journalists of which you are one? I'm a wannabe. And David is actually turning out to be a proper journalist and writer.
Also a wannabe. So that's a great question, Alan, because I'm ready for all this tea to be spilled. Rob, let's hear it.
I don't know what you're talking about, David. I'm going to keep my temper in check today, I think, because this is a brand that I like and a brand that I've always liked and a brand that I find many of my colleagues in the industry, as I sort of alluded to before, to support. There are plenty of hardcore, well-respected journalists that do not like Hublot for mostly aesthetic reasons, if I'm being totally frank. Less so on the whole kind of perception issues, because I think one of the advantages of being a long-time watch journalist is you don't really have to rely on brand perceptions. You get up close and personal with pretty much everything. Like, you can be very intimately acquainted with all major brands, and you are not just aware of what's happening, but also often aware of why it's happening. So there's nothing left to guesswork, is what I'm trying to say. So I think one reason why journalists in general, I would say, have on average a more favorable opinion than the public do towards Hublot is because we actually have seen all of the magic that they are creating, and sometimes more importantly trying to create, because there's a hell of a lot of stuff that Hublot does that doesn't make it to market because it fails, but they're trying it. They're not lazy. They don't just roll out a 44mm solid rose gold big bang and have done with it. I mean, yeah, there's a place for those in the collection, absolutely, but the really cool thing is when they try to blow our minds and completely stuff it up, because that's funny. They're pushing the boundaries, and that's really what it means. Like, they are pushing. They're pushing themselves. They don't know all the time if what they're trying to do in the foundry in neon is going to work or not. And we see the result of what does come off. And like this Saxon material, like this incredible brightly colored sapphire case material, is nuts. And the QC failure rate on something like that is through the roof because sapphire cases shatter so frequently when you're making them. But they persevered. They found a way to make it reliable enough for them to create enough pieces to actually make profit on this piece. And we benefit. We're the ones that get all of the spoils of Hublot's labor. So that is why I think that the journalists tend to be a little softer, handle the brand a little bit more delicately, and try and present it, because we know what's coming. We know, and a long time ago, I lost patience with dressing down my positivity about a brand like Hublot and started singing its praises from the rooftops. And for a while, I was in the significant minority. As David, you noticed correctly, perhaps, that the tone was always a little bit more placating than it was promoting in the old days amongst journalists, even though the opinion was softer towards the brand. But I just wanted to say to people, look, this is worth shouting about. This is worth getting excited over. This is what we need some brands in the industry to be doing. And this is what we need very moneyed individuals to be supported so the rest of us benefit, because just like in Formula One and all the developments that those car companies make, just like they trickle down to road cars over the years and we all end up benefiting from that massive multi-million-dollar sport, so too does high-end horology have a trickle-down effect onto the more affordable pieces that the man on the street can afford.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Rob. And while I'm listening to you, I've been thinking we kind of have a bit of a tunnel vision because we're very much focusing on Europe and the US. But while I was listening to you, I remembered that my passion also for, let's call it the new Hublot, came from my friend Mike Tay, the current CEO of the Hourglass in Singapore. He is a big watch nerd and his dad too. So also second generation, I guess, like me. And in Asia, I think they have less of a burden with historic pedigree and ways of perceiving and thinking of things, and they're more acceptant of new developments. I mean, the independents peak always in Asia first, and it seems a bigger understanding and appreciation for the innovative and niche and independent and new. And it's interesting that their fresh take on things is infectious. So it's also a matter of point of view, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But I think like in Asia, the flex culture is really high, right? I mean, certainly in the Middle East. And that specialness of Hublot probably puts it right near the top of the most desirable brands because it's unlike anything else. And if you can get like a fluorescent yellow sapphire case, your buddies, down the, I don't know, where do they hang out in Dubai? I've never been to Dubai. I was going to say down the pub, but they definitely don't hang out down the pub. Your buddies down the 5-star hotel, polished marble lobby are going to be like, man, that's sick. That's really cool. You're the best shake in the house. Love it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and you're right. But Hourglass specific are really about the art of watchmaking, and they go from a holistic intrinsic value where they say, hey, quality and innovation is what is being appreciated. Obviously, they rock their Rainbow Daytonas as well. But yeah, interesting point of view, Rob. So David, you, I guess, are the biggest fan of Hublot amongst us three. Do you actually own one? And if not, is it on your wish list?
That's an interesting question, Alon, because I was actually just talking about this with Rob this morning. I have a potential trade I might be working on to get a Hublot because I don't own one currently, but I've definitely had my eyes on Big Bang Unico in particular. I think there's another one, which is the Mecha 10, which is cool, but there's no date on that. And I know that's a conversation for another episode, but the Big Bang Unico with the date, I think would be the watch for me. And I'm working on that currently. Two other things I'll mention before just kind of turning it back over for a wrap up is that there is no sponsorship implied at all in this. No one's getting paid to say any of this. This is all really just our opinion. And a personal request from me is that if anyone out there knows people at Hublot, works for Hublot, and wants to do a special edition collaboration with us, give us a call because we will treat you right and make that happen for sure.
Making strategic decisions now, but he's absolutely right. He's got the job. If you're going to bring us a special edition with Hublot, bloody hell, you can have my chair.
We'll make it happen. We'll three of us put our heads together and get something wild and crazy, but respectable.
All right. Okay. Before it gets any bluer than that, let's wrap it up. All right. That was an interesting chat, guys. Thank you for stepping into this Audicle analysis, and thank you to our listeners for sticking with us. If you would like to ask us any questions about this or any other topic, you can find us on Instagram. That's ROBNUDDS or ALONBENJOSEPH or DAVAUCHER. We will be back this week with a Q&A session on Tuesday and another interview with one of watchmaking's finest on Thursday. Tune in for those. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.